Hello?
You got it.
I just want to say I didn't see anything.
Well, I wanted to look away like so many times, and I couldn't because I needed to write about it. And I'm like, I don't want to. Yeah.
So Raymond and Patricia, since you're both Latinos on the panel, I want to know: did you grow up knowing this this mythology? Is this something that your parents told you, and how did it affect you growing
First
up?
time I've heard of her.
Yes, on set.
No, of course we did. Everyone who's Latin knows about La Llorona. She's our boogeyman. She's our Frankenstein. We know about her since we were children. And you hear about it from your relatives, your grandfathers, your great-grandfathers. And they heard about it when they were children. You know, you're Latin. We get it. Now it's time for the rest of the world to get it.
Yeah. Although every country has their own version of La Llorona.
Ours
We
is
just,
better.
we are just very much entitled to. We feel entitled, but yeah, same for me. Growing up in Mexico and Venezuela, La Llorona is something. I mean, you behave. We're 6 brothers and sisters, so the 3 older brothers always scared us with La Llorona.
Well, because the parents are the ones that tell you, you know, the La Llorona or the Cucuy is going to come get you. Is that a good parenting?
Oh, my mom would say, if you don't listen, La Llorona is going to kill you.
She's gonna go, eat your food. Eat your food.
Did
She's
it work?
gonna come get you.
Stay in line?
Yes. I'm very well mannered. I'm very well behaved.
Speaking of the, oh sorry, go ahead.
No. What do you do now? I mean, we all have children, and how we do want to pass the story because it's obviously so important to us. But at the same time, do we want to scare them so much?
Yes.
You're gonna pass it on in the same way?
Oh, of course.
Speaking of the different versions of the story, I want to say how, from all of you guys' standpoint, you chose to lean in one specific background and version of the story.
You know, there were so many different versions. You know, we researched this a lot. We met with, so many people. We spoke to their grandmothers, their abuelas. We met with curanderos. And the funny thing is that the deeper you dig, you realize that there's so many different variations of it. It's been told so many times. And, some of them are incredible. Some of them are, there's, the version of La Llorona that goes after unfaithful husbands. She lures them down to the river, and then she turns into
Okay with that.
she turns into a horse-faced woman. I was like, horse-face, that's awesome. There's no horse faces in the movie, as you saw. But, it became this balance of, what is the scariest version? Because I think that, ultimately we want to just capture that feeling that kids would have when they hear the story for the first time, which is they're scared out of their minds. We just wanted to make a really fun, scary, ruthless movie, and that was the La Llorona we wanted to make. And so I think the version we have is a more traditional version where she is relentlessly going after children. So,
kind of to go further with that, I have to ask because we find out about Annabelle, and the tie-in. Was that always planned? Did you always want to have Annabelle be a part of it?
Yes, James was always a producer on the movie. He was brought in, very early on, and there was a lot of discussion. The first script that I had Father Perez in it, and it was. I think there was some debate, some question, but the script was already in such a good place that James was really excited about it. What we had hoped, and I hope there still is that element that the audiences can discover that connection, because I think there was a lot of discussion. Do we full on market this as?
Yeah, that's actually what I wanted to ask about. Why wasn't it directly marketed that way? Just to keep it a surprise?
I think that was part of the secret. Surprises and secrets are now so rare, and it's so hard to keep in movies. Now it's going to be very hard to keep. But in a way, that's almost more infectious when you're trying to keep it a secret. And I think that was part of the fun of it. James is producer, but we're all fans of the Conjuring Universe, and we're so, we love so much of the stuff in it, so we were just like kid in a candy store to try and make these connections.
So I know that you started with short films, right?
Yes.
So what's the biggest transition you have to make when tackling a short film to a big feature horror film like this?
It was, before the short film, so the short film that got me hired on this is The Maiden. So it's this, scary short film about this woman who sells a haunted house. And before that, I just did commercials, and I think that both with short films and commercials, it's like a sprint. And I come in with a lot of energy. I'm very excitable, but usually you're only shooting for 1, 2, 3 days. And with this, it's a marathon. You know, you go in and you're like 2 weeks into the production, and I was just like exhausted. And then like flu went through like the entire crew, like we all got sick. So not only was I like running on fumes, exhausted, like I got sick. We all got sick. And I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it to the end.
I didn't get sick. But I'm gonna put a little.
But yeah, no, that was the biggest thing. It's just like the time. It was like, wow, this keeps on going forever.
Llorona, your performance was like legit. I feel like if I had kids, which I don't want to, like, and La Llorona was coming after them, I'd probably react like the same.
Thank you so much.
Did you do any specific research, like outside of just the folklore myth?
I asked everybody I knew. I didn't know about her until I got the script, and I started asking everybody I knew. And one of my friends told me the funniest story. He told me that he's like, oh, that's an old one. That's a really old one. Which I feel like because of the age of the folklore, it was even scarier to him. And he said, my grandmother used to tell me that. And one time my grandmother got mad at me and sent me to my room, and it was nighttime. And he's like, and he heard two cats in heat, like, and he swore it was La Llorona. He was like crying by himself in his bed all night. But I asked around about that, and but it was my ignorance about it. It serves the character and the story because it's a way into the whole world to understand, you know, and the idea that she doesn't know. What I love about it is this sort of, and I said, the road to hell is paved with good intention, and she really tries hard to help Patricia and thinks she's the only one who can help her, and dooms her children, and then dooms her own family. I'm a mom, so the idea of that is literally the most terrifying thing I could ever imagine. And I remember reading the script alone at night and realizing within the first few minutes of the film, this wasn't like a scary person killing teenagers who were being too sexually active or partying like you see in a lot of movies. This was like very innocent little children. And once that started happening, I thought, that's terrifying.
I feel like the cats in heat story would have been a cool bonus feature for the movie as well.
Go ahead. So, you hadn't done a lot of horror prior to this. So what drew you to this role?
A lot of that, and a lot of the idea of it was something I'd never really done, especially in this capacity. The idea that in horror there are great roles for women. There are 3 great roles for women, and the little girl too. Like, there are strong roles for Patricia. She has an arc. She's not just one thing. Marisol, who does an incredible job as La Llorona, she is not just one thing. And my character goes through so much. She starts in a place of ignorance and then becomes, you know, all too knowing. And that, to me, to work amongst, and of course, Ray, not to exclude you.
My character is sexy throughout the film.
There's no argument there.
Typically, when you sit in on this, it's mostly men and just a few women, and it was nice to be there with so many women and strong women and mothers fighting. We're all 3 mothers fighting for our children in some way. Some it's a perversion of that, and to me that was exciting, and also it just. I love being an actor, and the thing I love being an actor is that I get to do things that are completely different from each other. I kind of don't like to stay doing the same thing for too long, and the idea that I had never done this, and this package came along with what Michael was bringing to it as a new voice, and James Wan, and Gary Dauberman, who's, you know, responsible for it, and all, you know, and is directing Annabelle now, and all the people that wrote New Line. I grew up watching all the New Line movies. I mean, Freddy Krueger was the scariest thing I'd ever seen when I was a kid. So that whole idea, and the idea that people go to the theater still to watch horror and sit there and have this collective, terrifying yet hilarious, and you know, you have all these emotions sitting in the theater. I think it's hard to get people to go to the theater anymore, and the idea that fans could go and watch this and sit there and have this experience. There were so many things about it that I thought, I've never done this. Why should I not go and try it?
So like going off of that, this could be for any of you. Like obviously, like in the film, you have to act like really scared at a lot of points. So how do you go about like being in that like terrified mind state? Because I feel like if you're saying like cut and then action, now all of a sudden be scared. Like how do you kind of get into that zone?
Use your imagination. But it's not hard considering the environment and
Yeah.
the set and the costumes, and you put yourself in that reality for that moment, and then you see the children. The children were really scared, I was like, hey, yeah, it's real.
Also because you weren't, there was no. It's not like we were using a green screen. Marisol was there, and she's giving us so much, and I mean, it was it was not hard to get yourself to that place of scare and.
Plus,
also
Charles
having to
yells
fight.
at you.
Yeah.
Big yeller. Big yeller on set, yeah.
Yeah, big yell a lot.
And also, you get your body worked up into a certain state.
Yeah.
And then if you're running from something, which we're often running, or we're often pounding, or we're, screaming, that sort of works your body up in a way that you have to. When they say cut it, you're heavy breathing, and that doesn't necessarily slow down right away.
Yeah.
So you're able to sustain a state of that for a while, just physically.
Going off of the whole, people go to the movies to see horror, especially nowadays. The horror has taken on a more mainstream appeal in a way. I also feel for the three of you to go, because you all done at least horror adjacent movies before. I also feel to come back now in this day and age of the horror sort of like renaissance in a way.
I think it feels wonderful. Because it's first of all, it's a really important story to tell. I mean, it's almost like we have a responsibility to do good by La Llorona, and I mean, in the group that was created through Michael and everybody's, it's what a great story.
Also, we're actors. I'm a huge horror fan. I love horror movies, and to have the opportunity to be in one, and then to contribute to the story and help tell it, it's amazing. It's amazing, dream as an actor to do different genres, and to do one like this, and then the subject matter La Llorona from my own culture. It's wonderful.
Patricia, Raymond, just speaking on that, I mean, you this is a Latino story. There's a lot of Latino actors in the film. How important is that to you as Latino actors to be able to tell the story, but not also that? I mean, get some people in front of the camera that need to be there.
Well, it's important because in the old days you would see people that were painted brown, or you had other people painted to look like Native Americans or Mexicans in films. So they have Latin actors portraying Latin characters. I'm not saying it's like a giant leap. We've been doing it for a while, but we bring an authenticity from our culture that you can't teach someone that.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, it's ingrained in you. So it contributes a lot to the film.
Yeah, I think it's also very for us. It's an honor to be a part and to be the ones that represent this such an important story, legend, reality. However you want to call it.
There was a big Latin meeting, and they said, "Who wants to do it?"
It's just all the Latin actors in a room.
Are there any superstitions that you grew up with that you still use today?
Oh my gosh. Tons. I have one sorry, I'm talking too much. There's one that is probably the most important in my house. My house, there are two. I'm a Wayo Indian, so indigenous, everything that's in under the water should never be taken out of the water. So you'll never find a seashell inside my house. It's hard when you have a little girl, but every time you go to the beach, she wants to bring a shell to the house. And when she falls asleep, I take it out. She's all of a sudden is in the car. He's like, why are my shells here? And then there's another one that's really important, and I suggest it to use it. Is an aloe vera plant. You will never go into a house of an indigenous Wayo where there's not an aloe vera plant. And this thing works. You have a little aloe vera plant, and what does the aloe vera does? Absorbs, right? Like you use it for burns, you use it for scars. If there is someone that comes into your house with bad energy, you don't even know. When the person leaves, you woke up the next day and this aloe vera plant will be brown. And you should not be upset. You should just really take it, throw it away. Many times the aloe vera, they have little kids, so keep the little kids. And you will see immediately who was the person that came to your house. It works. You don't even have to be a believer.
I'm going to try that.
Try it.
I'm getting one.
If you live by yourself and it turns brown,
It's you.
Yeah, it's me.
You gotta work on yourself.
If you were to take somebody into a botanica that has never been there before, what do you think would be the biggest thing that freaked them out the most when they saw what's in there?
In a botanica? Yeah, everything, because it's a combination of everything that's in there. Because a lot of people are frightened by it. It's spooky to them because they have no experience or knowledge with it. And like we walk in and we see the candles, we see the incense, the palo, and everything. To us, it's like, oh, I could use that. I could use that. I like those crystals across. It has meaning to us. But other people are like freaked out and spooked by it.
Well, there's a saint of death, right? That
Right.
people sell. A lot of people from Latin culture don't understand that.
Well, there's no real death in Latin culture. There's just moving on. Yeah, we'll see you later.
One of my,
You can go.
I would say one of my favorite scenes was the umbrella scene.
Ah.
I was like, well played. That was good. So how did you come up with like different scares? Like, because that one was so creative.
Oh, thanks. I'm so glad you like that. That was.
Oh my god, it was so good.
The I think some of the best scenes in it were already written in the very earliest drafts, like the bathtub scene was always in there. I think that like from the very earliest incarnation, New Line was like, there's going to be a bathtub scene. But the umbrella was one of the things I brought to it. It was actually a totally different scene and scare before, where she was in like the oleander bush or something, and I was like, we should do something with an umbrella, because it's like it's rainy, it's cool, and I started like seeing these umbrellas online. They were the translucent kind. I was like, we can do something with that. It's like cool. It feels like very 70s. And I was like, what can we do? What can we do? And then, just the idea of like how it's kind of, distorted, obscured, and you're kind of like, when you look through it, it's seeing something, not being too sure, and, having that moment. I thought that was really fun. And, I loved how it also, tied in the wind. And, the wind is so part of the legend, this howling wind, the whispering wind. And so that was, it felt like a lot of like things came together with that.
And the water and that shot down on the pool is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the scene where they're in the orphanage? In the
The
green
kids?
color?
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Those
And
kids are
like,
so cute.
was there a specific reason to use the green, or was that just?
That was just this bold choice that Michael Burgess, our DP, director of photography, pitched. And he was like, let's just do like a green hallway, like just sickly green. And I was like, okay, cool, that sounds good. And then, we arrive on set, and the funny thing is, that was the first thing we shot. And it was, we shot it on a day basically before we were even technically supposed to be shooting. It was like a pre-light day. And I hope that doesn't get us into trouble. But so we were barely even supposed to be shooting. We get like in there and we start doing it, and then I see like the sickly green, and when you see it, you're like, I'm like, have I made a terrible mistake? Did I agree to something I should not have done? But I was like, no, let's just go with it. Let's go with it. It's too late. We got to move fast. We got to shoot it. And so that was literally the first thing that we shot. And it's so funny because I just feel like now I look back on it and I'm like, wow, that was like right out of the gate. It was like right. It was like, I love that sequence. And also it's like, it's the sequence that whenever you're seeing it with an audience, and we've tested it a couple times, like, they're in. That's because you've had all these little teases up to that moment, and it just comes in when she makes her appearance in the hall. Like it just comes in like a sledgehammer, and like I'm so proud of that scare, and it's just crazy because I look back, I was like, we didn't even know what we were doing when we first started.
So terrifying, like so terrifying.
Yeah.
Those poor kids.
When we were shooting, there's some things that we don't see, so watching it and seeing the mirror go and that sound terrified me because that wasn't there on the day. For when I do the scene with the am I spoiling stuff?
No.
But anyway, the scene where the door closes and then also in that hallway, that jump scare really gets me good.
So, like, obviously, ghosts are interpreted in a lot of different ways with certain things they can do. So, were there like a set of rules that you established for the supernatural in the film? Like, obviously, I guess it also have to follow the rules of the Conjuring films too.
Yeah, there was no drinking and no smoking on set.
Except for the ghosts. Yeah. They were allowed.
It's funny. That's always something that is, gets examined, when you're making it. Because I think with the supernatural, what's great about making a movie about ghosts and the supernatural is there is a flexibility, about where she can appear and where, you can have these surprises. The funny thing is, you really can't do anything. And we even saw that in some earlier cuts where we tried something and then everyone was like, now we went too far, we broke a rule. And the rules, you kind of go in with a rule set, but then you kind of redefine as you're going through it, because so much about it is the feel, about what feels both scary and what feels believable in this world. I mean, I think that's really, ultimately, if it's scary, that's what we found, is like, it works, you know, and it stays in the movie. So yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
One last question I got is, what would you want audiences to know going into the film, and what would you hopefully want them to take away from it?
I hope audiences going in not know anything about her, and then walk away with complete knowledge of La Llorona and afraid.
Yeah, I think it's a very important story for us, but I want them to know that they're going to be super entertained and scared. But when they come out, they're going to feel empowered.
Besides La Llorona, what scares you on a daily basis? If you could just.
What doesn't scare me?
Oh yeah, I mean, that's a given.
Really quickly, I was intrigued back when the movie first got announced by the fact that the main character is a non-Latino character. I wanted to ask a bit about that decision process and you know, that building that character.
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, from the beginning, we wanted an outsider. We wanted someone who, you know, comes in with, you know, just with no understanding, with just like a zero understanding, and so you could have that sense of discovery. Because I think that, you know, what I love about this movie is like, it is such a great introduction of La Llorona to the world and to people who have never heard of her, and it's so cool to just like see people who are like clumsily trying to pronounce her name, and like you get that learning, that sense of discovery. And so we wanted someone that could really inject that into the movie, could ask all those questions. And I think also, you know, especially, you know, movies that have this kind of, you know, kind of spiritual, kind of Catholic, you know, element to it, there is a little bit of this kind of Old Testament kind of punishment. And I think that that's what's kind of fun, is that, you know, a character that comes in with ignorance, you know, to a story, they get put through the ringer, you know, and I think that that's just really, there's something so fun and terribly fun about that, you know?
I mean, why is that the case when it comes to horror fans themselves? They can, you know, they love Freddy Krueger, they love Jason, they can do all that, but when it comes to the religion part, people are like, oh, no, don't touch that. Like people, when they gave me the red handkerchiefs last night, people were freaking out about
Because
that.
it's real.
Mm-hmm. And they feel guilty.
There's an energy. There's an energy to it that you know you're playing with fire.
There's
You
a
really have to
positive
take it-
and a
you have to
negative
take it
energy.
seriously.
You choose.
Also, I was raised Catholic, and it was like not to invite that sort of evil in, like not to open the door to it was part of it. Like I remember being terrified of devil talk in movies. That was like the most terrifying thing to me, because as a Catholic, that was like hearing something I wasn't supposed to be hearing. So it took me till I was maybe in college to actually watch The Exorcist.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
like if you want to know if people believe in this stuff, pull out a Ouija board.
Oh no,
That's true.
That is
That's
true.
true. I still don't. I won't do it.
Just Ouija them.
My friends would always move it though.
Because no matter what, there's always that
What
chance.
did they?
Yes, they did.
My cousins would always move the VHS copy of The Exorcist around the house and turn it up.
Yeah.
And I was like,
So what did James say?
After the screening, or
Yeah,
from the very
what is
beginning?
any feedback that he's given you? Is he a fan? Have you liked it?
It's been awesome. Yeah, no, he loves the movie. He's been such a great supporter, you know, from the very beginning. And, you know, I think that, you know, the story itself means so much to him. You know, he loves it. It's like one of those, you know, those ghost stories that, you know, it's been around for hundreds of years.
Right.
It's so sticky. There was something so just, you know, that, you know, sticks with people.
And the image of her too. I remember not knowing the name of her, but knowing what she looked like. That image of somebody with the veil and the tear. Like I didn't know what it was, but I was still aware of it somehow. So
Yeah. No, please, yeah. I mean, he was, you know, honestly such a great collaborator on this film. You know, he's a producer. It's funny because I'm like a crazy James Wan fan, just like I think almost everyone at this table, you know? So to be working with him, to be able to pitch ideas to him, to pitch scares to him, that's the craziest thing. When you're like trying to pitch something scary to James Wan, and then he's like, yeah. It's like so satisfying. I'm like, yes, I did it.
And he was around too, and he was so kind to all of us, and he was around a lot, and he really cares about, I think, everything that he supports.
Yeah, he's just the greatest champion to that. I mean, because he loves these movies. He loves scary movies, and he, you know, I mean, just is such a great supporter. I could probably like write a book of all the James Wan like things I've learned. But he's been a great guy.
Do we have time for another question?
What is it? Now I'm curious.
I was just gonna ask, like, what are you gonna take from this and apply to the Conjuring 3? Like, what have you learned to like tackle
so
your
much
project?
So much stuff.
All female cast.
Yeah. Llorona's in Conjuring 3. She comes and I might as well say it now. No, just kidding. Honestly, a lot of things from the making of it, it is very quickly the team. It's not one person that makes these movies. It is getting the best team, a team that works well together. And I think that I was blessed with such a great team on this. And, I think that we are assembling such a great team. The Warrens are coming back, Horace, and we got a great script, a great story. From like a scare level, this has been such a, I love scary movies. I did that short film that, is a scary movie. And, so it's like, I know scary. But it's funny because, it has been such an education making this movie, and I think that sound, it's one of those things that you all know that, like, scary movies all built around, scary sounds and like the atmosphere, and now I think even more so, I have an appreciation for that, and just how I almost feel like some of these sequences, I feel like should always be sound first. Like you should be thinking about what those sounds are before anything else, and let those inspire the visuals.
I'm excited.
So,
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys so much for your time.